panel of a major conference that we're all very much looking forward to. And in this first panel, we have much to discuss. We want to get started right away. We want to also just thank, obviously, UBFSF. We want to thank Ivan Kilgore. We want to thank all of our donors who gave, and we want to thank Prison Radio for all of their assistance, and all of you for joining us and for helping to support this wonderful event. My name is Zebulon Miletsky. I'm an associate professor of Africana Studies and History at Stony Brook University. Got started working with Ivan and with UBFSF through my wonderful colleagues, Robert Chase and Susan Shekel. We're doing a program at Stony Brook, we have been for the last couple of years, looking at incarcerated writers as authors and as basically 21st century abolitionists, putting together a living archive of their writing and looking at those as almost new narratives for this generation's fight against the new Jim Crow mass incarceration. For all who don't know, the mission of the United Black Family Scholarship Foundation is to provide all races a quality education to change political structures and systems that perpetuate poverty and racism. Its programs and initiatives advance education, not in the strict sense of credentialism, rather education as it pertains to rebuilding the community from within the community by empowering people to take action in the political transformation of our communities. And that's what this conference is all about. First, just a couple facts for all those who may be new to this about mass incarceration. America is the world's largest jailer. We imprison more people than any other country. The US has over 2.4 million behind bars, an increase of over 500% in the past 30 years. We have 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prisoners. People of color represent 60% of people in cages. 1 in 8 Black men in their 20s are locked up on any given day. 75% of people in state prison for drug conviction are people of color, although Blacks and whites see and use drugs at roughly the same rate. In New York State, where I live and teach, 94% of those in prison for a drug offense are people of color. 5.3 million Americans are denied their right to vote as a result of incarceration. As such, 13% of Black men are disenfranchised, and those numbers are rising. Over the past 2 decades, state spending on prisons grew 6 times the spending of higher education. And from 1997 to 2007, the number of women in prison has increased by 832%. Nearly $70 billion is spent annually on prisons, probation, parole, and detention. So our position is that mass incarceration and the racist practices of the new Jim Crow, as manifested in all the collateral consequences imposed on individuals in our communities, will be dismantled with a grassroots bottom-up effort led by those most directly affected and supported by their allies. So we invite you to join us as our program and policy interns, who I'm about to introduce, sit down with our incarcerated brothers at California State Prison Solano to discuss the significance of this empowering conference on some of the most courageous and innovative planning in the non-for-profit world today. Just some background, Section 501c3 is the portion of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code that allows for federal tax exemption of nonprofit organizations that meet the code's requirements. These nonprofits may be considered public charities, private foundations, or private operating foundations. 501c3 is just one category of 501c organizations, but it is the primary nonprofit status through which donations made to the organization are tax deductible. These folks have utilized the tool of the 501c3 as a primary driver for social change. This makes it a very unique and underexplored corner of the world of philanthropy. The voices you will hear today are changing the face of that world, one which has historically emanated out of the more wealthy and affluent sectors of society to help those less fortunate. But in this case, these are grassroots efforts coming out of the places that used to be the focus of philanthropy, turning the equation on its head to empower themselves from the least likely of sources, America's prisons. Organizing a nonprofit from a prison cell is no easy task. To do this work, one needs strategy, precision planning, perseverance, courage, and help from friends, and also luck. Conference topics will include how to create a 501c3 nonprofit organization, organizational management, recruiting volunteers and developing a board of directors, leadership development and administration, budget and finance, fundraising and development, tools and resource communication and access while incarcerated, policy administration, media and marketing, and transitioning your program from prison to outside communities. In this first panel, we're going inside America's prisons to change the dynamic of community work and the nonprofit world as we know it. So it gives me a lot of pleasure and honor to introduce the panelists today. We have our interns with us, and they include Michael Spinelli, R.E.B.U.I.L.D Field Director, University of Michigan, Danielle Uter, R.E.B.U.I.L.D Policy Coordinator, University of Pennsylvania, Taos Washington, R.E.B.U.I.L.D Research and Survey Coordinator, University of Colorado, Denver, and Cheyenne Hughes, R.E.B.U.I.L.D Volunteer and Services Coordinator at California State University, Los Angeles. And they will be in dialogue with our incarcerated panelists who have given of their time to, in advance, to share their experiences. And they include Willie M. Clay II, and you can see their bios are here. We want to invite you to go to the website, ubfsf.org, for more information. Barry Monroe, Philip White, Jamil Ahmad, Fabian Kensrantz, Brian Thames, Damar Hatch, Hassan Faris, and Tino Peace. They will be our primary speakers today, and obviously, due to the situations that people are in, we've had to utilize technology in order to make this conversation happen. And so we're just so proud to be able to do that today. The other thing we want to say is during the presentation, if you have questions, you can write them into the chat. We ask that we keep all the questions until the end for Q&A. And you can utilize the hand raising function if you're on Zoom, or write your question on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to bring it into the conversation. So we're going to get started. Again, we want to thank Prison Radio for this use of this technology, and thank our panelists in advance for putting this together. And of course, we'll come back to him here, comments from Ivan at the end, where we want to thank Ivan Kilgore, UBFSF founder and author. And for all those who don't know, Ivan Kilgore is an incarcerated author, activist, and founder of the UBFSF. Shortly after entering prison, Ivan discovered an ability to write and speak publicly that eventually led to him transforming his life and becoming an advocate for empowering America's underserved to take action in the political transformation of their communities. So let's get started. Our first question that we want to begin with today is going to be question number 9. Regarding the acquisition of skills within our program, how do you perceive these skills aiding in your reentry and success back into society? And that first question will go to uh, Jamil Ahmad.
How do you perceive these skills aiding in your reentry and success back into society? Regarding acquisition of skills, for me, is the key component to this question. And I say that because when we're doing time and we're incarcerated, the majority of us who have decided to turn our life in a proper direction start to envision and start to imagine ourselves being able to accomplish things that would help the situation of others, that would improve the situation of others. But one of the pitfalls and one of the common hurdles that we all face is being able to translate what I would like to do as far as intentions and get that to a place to where I can concretely devise a plan of action to be able to execute these things is something that we lack. So being able to get the skills for social services, for nonprofit programs, for different avenues of helping society with this ills and being a part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem. Developing these skills is something that is critical because good intentions is good within itself. But if you don't have the concrete information, if I don't have the concrete information to be able to achieve these things, if I don't understand how important it is to know the information of the nonprofit sector, if I don't know even what a 501c3 is, then it's going to be impossible for whatever goodness is in my heart and whatever positive energy and approach that I may have if I don't have the information to facilitate that. So being able to acquire the skills while here allows me the freedom to, once I am able to achieve my release from prison, it allows me to immediately get my feet on the ground, to immediately become a part of the action squad. And that's why the acquisition of skills that the United Black Family Scholarship Fund provides is critical to us in here because it allows us a chance to be completely marketable getting out, to be able to immediately get out and to get involved in the struggle within society. And that's the difference. And sometimes that can be the difference between reoffending and not reoffending. And so that's how important it is.
Okay, and we'll ask Mike and Danielle to respond.
Yeah, I just think it's awesome that we're in a position where we can hear from someone as well-spoken as Mr. Ahmad speak on a topic like that. And I think a couple of points that he brought up that are especially important to think about are, first of all, striking while the iron's hot on passion. You know, there are a lot of folks out there who are given a drive, a real desire to help and make a change in the world, but unfortunately aren't given the resources necessary to act on that passion and drive. And if we continue to perpetrate a system where they will never be provided those resources, it's really difficult to expect them to not eventually give up on that passion and that desire, which is why it's so important, I think, to provide institutional development like this so that as soon as these people, these incarcerated fellows, feel that real drive to help and make a change for the world and better themselves, they can, instead of having to wait and wade through a mire of a lack of resources and knowledge. And that really builds on to just how complex and difficult the system can be in even not knowing what you don't know. You know, I think most folks who have had no exposure to the nonprofit system don't even know what a 501c is. And ultimately, it's difficult to imagine how someone can be expected to develop a 501c and put a real plan of action in place if they don't even know where to begin in looking up what 501c is. So I think Mr. Ahmad's response was incredibly insightful there.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, I just wanted to touch on a little bit of what you said about marketability. I loved his point about like using marketability to address recidivism. and how many incarcerated folks are not able to build marketable skills and are almost left out to dry once they are like thrust into a new and ever-changing world that calls for new knowledge and skills. And this is the main cause of recidivism. So because these folks are not adequately prepared with skills and knowledge to adapt. So when it specifically comes to building those skills, I think about what the skills I'm building now through this program and how I'm learning research and surveying and communication and policy writing, all of these integral skills that two incarcerated folks can earn and learn as well in order to enter into the world and have those skills that people need and that people want, so that they can get gainful employment and contribute to society. So I just thought that was also a very important point as well. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I absolutely agree with you there on the importance of building these skills for once they've left the carceral system. State and federal prison systems have already shown that they understand exactly how important it is to give people the skills to enter the workforce once they have left the system. But there absolutely is a woeful lack of programs designed to help people enter the nonprofit space. And I think that's where programs like these that unfortunately have to be put forward by folks like Ivan to really teach these skills and provide a stopgap for a massive lack in the educational system that currently exists within the carceral state. And hopefully this kind of information will be something that'll be further supported officially by the state and federal prison systems. I absolutely agree with you there.
Wonderful, wonderful, both of you. And we should hasten to add that, our interns who are speaking have done so much behind the scenes work. And there's a lot of other people on here too who have contributed to this. We'll make sure to thank all of them at the end as well. And I'm also going to just take moderator privilege here just because I sort of forgot to kind of really introduce the speakers that we're hearing from. So we just heard from Jamil Ahmad, and Jamil Ahmad is 53 years old, goes by the Handsome Camel. He is a forever student and is committed to the process of self-development in himself and in others. The next panelist that we're going to hear from, and again, all of these information can be found on the website. We ask that you check it out, is Tino Pease. Tino Pease is an incarcerated activist noted for this work in developing prisoners embracing anti-hostilities cultural evolution, or peace, a revolutionary, forward-thinking, and diverse group of men at Pelican Bay State Prison who organized to change its prison culture from one noted for its extreme violence to now being noted for its commitment to higher learning and social betterment. He has been incarcerated 22 years. And so the question that we're going to be posing to Tino is question number 2. What tools do you currently possess or require to fully develop a service organization?
What tools do you currently possess or require to fully develop a service organization? In regards to this question, I believe that the tools and skills that I'm humbled and grateful to possess, which I'm confident can be an asset in assisting to fully develop a service organization successfully, at least from my perspective, of course, begins with my experience in literally being one of the co-founders of a revolutionary inmate leisure time activity group in Pelican Bay State Prison, which I played an intricate role in creating, and it was called the Peace Group. So PEACE was an acronym for Prisoners Embracing Anti-Hostility Cultural Evolution, which was a prisoner-initiated and administratively approved organization. This revolutionary, forward-thinking group of men actually changed the prison culture at one of the most notoriously violent prisons in the state to now one that's recognized for its many successful rehabilitation, self-help, and higher educational programs for its general population. The purpose of this group was to study and adopt conflict resolution curriculum, such as those developed by certified professional neutrals and or like-minded organizations. In this way, the group's ultimate aim is to promote the reduction of interracial violence on our level 4 prisons. The pursuit of these goals were expected to provide for the development of a social environment that is conducive to authentic and lasting rehabilitation for our prisoner society. So the technical skills that I've developed regarding organizational prowess consisted of drafting out the group's constitution and bylaws, which will govern the group's operations. I was also tasked with organizing the voting procedures for the election of the executive board members designated with the responsibilities of presiding over the group's daily functions, such as creating and facilitating the course curriculum, conducting all group meetings and activities, as well as organize special events. In addition, I've earned an associate degree of liberal arts and behavior and social science with high honors in the GPA of 3.74 from College of the Redwoods. And lastly, with respect to my higher educational accolades, I received an honorable admission into the bachelor's program offered by Cal Poly Humboldt, the newest polytechnic institution, which is the first in Northern California and the third to be implemented in the state. So with that technical resume, I truly believe that I do possess the organizational experience and knowledge to adequately direct the operations of a nonprofit efficiently should the opportunity present itself. Thank you.
And I'd like to ask Taos and Danielle to respond.
Yeah. So what I really liked most about what Tino had to say was about how he pretty much said that the tools that he possesses to develop a service organization is the fact that he's been developing that organization. And so he mentioned the peace group, which he had found, which dealt with dealing with interracial conflict between prisoners in California. And he was able to reorganize and rehabilitate the California prison system, at least in his specific area, where they start working hand in hand with like-minded organizations and community members who want a rehabilitative process for the prison system, the carceral state in California. And for him to be able to do that with the lack of skill, the lack of resources, maybe a lack of skills from an upbringing, and be able to materialize that into a real-world application, I think definitely matters and is also very impressive, to say the least, given the circumstances.
Exactly, Taos. Like, I cannot help but think that this relates so closely to one's academic journey within college, like outside of the carceral state, and that the skills that are built within the university system. So it almost pains me to know that despite having those same skills and knowledge that is being built like inside and outside of prison, one's goals and like passions are often stifled by their record. So once they leave prison, there's almost like a stamp on their forehead that like bars many people from opportunities that they rightfully deserve and have the skills for. Like Tino has accomplished so much and developed so many skills within prison that some university students do not develop within that same time, yet will never have the same ease of access to opportunity. So I believe that this is why this program is so important, because it helps you develop those skills and knowledge to become one's own boss, basically, to forge your own path within this nonprofit world and to develop those marketable and appealing skills to open doors of opportunity for yourself and thus for like those around you.
Indeed.
If I could just jump in, it also just makes me think about how much more quickly this group could have been developed. When Tino talked, he spoke about how all of the skills that he's developed and that he currently has, he learned on the job, so to say. They weren't skills that he had before going in. He had to learn everything by doing. And it just makes me think about how much more quickly the peace group could have begun doing good within their prison had Tino actually been given the tools that he needed to succeed before having to learn them himself, and also just how many groups that we don't even know about, we've been robbed of because their founders, had these ideas, but the learning curve was simply too steep, and how much we've robbed ourselves of these great organizations that would be able to produce better men and better societies simply because we haven't been able to give these people the resources that they need and have forced them all to essentially do it yourself and teach everything from the ground up, which I think is just really sad and something that we should strive to better.
Well said. Well said. Lot to think about. And I want to let you know we're doing pretty well on time. So if anyone else wants to jump in as we go forward, don't, let the spirit move you, as they say. Um, all right, well, we're gonna move on to our next speaker, Mr. Philip White, and just scroll on up. Uh, Philip White is a life coach, mentor, philanthropist, entrepreneur, author, and advocate for the at-risk youth in the community. He believes in the motto, each one, reach one, teach one. Growing up, Philip fell victim to being a product of his environment. He indulged in a lifestyle that was counterproductive to his true purpose and goals in life. While incarcerated, Philip found himself turning to God and participating in a variety of self-help programs. Philip was able to identify the root of his old dysfunctional beliefs, his poor responses to conflict, and his shortcomings. With new insight, self-worth, and a new foundation built on God and good morals, Philip White gives back to society by writing and publishing books that address the everyday serious issues that once altered his growth and development. His latest work, What the Heck is Fentanyl, was just published and is now available on Amazon. I encourage you to check out many of our speakers who are also authors. Their work is available. So the question for Philip is question number 10, making amends. How do you envision the conference topics assisting you in this process?
I want to get into the topic of making amends and how I envision this conference helping me with that process. Today, I'm a living amend. To me, making amends is an action that never ends. I took a human's life of my own race, my own community. So I feel like being involved in a platform of this magnitude that's geared at addressing serious issues, this is an act of giving back, showing remorse, and making amends. Anything that addresses the social, economic issues in a community that I can involve myself with, I'm going to do, because my victim is not here to do that today. I am. So how dare I live life on earth after taking a human life and not do something positive and pro-social to give back, to prevent somebody else from making the same mistake, to prevent another life from being taken. So this is the only way that I can make amends. Through my children books that I write and my literacy, that's how I make amends. That's how I give back. Through my music, through managing my young artists, that's how I make amends. By never doing the same thing that led me in prison, that's how I make amends. By removing those unhealthy, dysfunctional, irrational beliefs that I had, that's how I make amends. I feel like it would be a slap in the face to not only my victim, but the victim's family and community for me to sit on my ass in here and not put forth the effort to address those issues that brought me to prison. So I'm a living amend. And I feel like this platform and this conference is helping me with that process by answering these questions, because these questions should trigger individuals to dig deeper. These aren't questions that give surface answers to. These are questions that have to be personal. Their answers have to be personal. And that's how I look at everything that I'm doing. My name is Philip White. You can contact me at AM8755. That's my booking number on the Getting Out GTL app. the founder of A Kid's Blueprint to Success. I'm the author of What the Heck is Fentanyl? Mommy, I Thought You Said Black is Beautiful. When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a Fireman. Concrete Walls and Steel Bars, The New Willie Lynch. Certified Thriller, Part 1 and Part 2, as well as Mommy Said It's Okay to Love. I look forward to hearing from individuals in the community. I'm available for mentoring. I'm a life coach certified. If anybody needs help in those areas, count me in. I volunteer myself to give back at any expense. Thank you.
Thank you. So on this one, we'd like to hear from Taos and then Cheyenne.
Yeah, so what I really liked the most about what Philip had to say was that he said that making amends is an action that never ends. And from somebody who hasn't been incarcerated, I think from the outside, we often think that individuals who are incarcerated maybe aren't working towards making amends or possibly not working towards the rehabilitative progress. But I do believe that a lot of them are actively working on that and trying to make a difference. And so, I really do like the fact that Philip said that his victim is no longer here. And so he takes it upon himself to, sit down for the both of them and join conversations like these, learn more and just be an active member of society and learn to give back with a more positive social impact. I really liked that aspect about it. And the fact that he continues to publish works in the realm of academia that allows him to continue the conversation. His most recent work, What the Heck is Fentanyl, raises a lot of good questions about one of the largest killers of, young people, people in the carceral state. And just like an epidemic or a pandemic of sorts that has really swept the nation and, started a lot of issues. So I really do like the fact that Philip takes it upon himself to actively work every single day towards making amends. I think that is the goal, and I think that's what we should all be striving for, even if you're not incarcerated.
Hi everyone. I wanted to branch off from what Taos had said. I wanted to comment on the point where Mr. Clay had stated, making amends is an action that never ends. I took a human life, so being involved in a platform of this magnitude geared at addressing a serious issue is an act of giving back, showing remorse, and making amends. I believe that being able to understand what you did wrong in the first place is also a privilege that goes very unnoticed most of the time. Many individuals don't understand or let themselves understand that, like, what went wrong or how to fix it. So just simply understanding is a huge step that many lack. I believe that everyone makes choices in life, some obviously more impactful and bigger than others. But the way in which we as humans go about changing those choices is how the world either becomes better or worse. And making a change for the better, even if it's small, truly does make a difference. And hearing that this platform had an impact and prompt Mr. Clay to want to give back is clearly a step in the right direction. And then another aspect I also wanted to talk about was seeing that he could connect his life and his actions and those changes and amends to ideas such as like children's books and music, in my opinion, is what prison should be designed to. I believe that allowing individuals to connect themselves and to better themselves through activities and programs is how change can be made, and how previous actions and beliefs can thus be removed and new beliefs and actions could be used for good. Though like the past can't be changed, it's how individuals like Mr. Clay chooses to create his future and how he puts forth his amends and then can prevent this from ever occurring again, either by him or by guiding others around him and prompting them to do the right thing. And I think that this conference and nonprofits overall are a great way to convey such a strong message by allowing individuals who have done wrong in their lives and gives them a chance at making these amends and to change the future for good.
You're here. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to remind folks, there's also other responses on the website to, if you want to explore a little bit more about the thinking or get more feedback from some of our panelists. Again, we invite you to check out the website ubfsf.org and find out some more information. Very powerful. Well, okay, our next panelist is Hassan Faris, Hassan. Hassan Faris is a 26-year-old Los Angeles, California native. He aspires to make the best of his prison experience by learning community organizing skills so that he may return to his community and bridge the divide caused by inner city gang violence. And the question that we posed, that was posed to Mr. Faris is question number one. What inspired you to explore the idea of creating a nonprofit or public service organization while incarcerated? And we'll hear from him at this time.
What inspired you to explore the idea of creating a nonprofit or public service organization while incarcerated? What inspired me to create a nonprofit was seeing kids in poverty, unloved, and misguided. To start an organization where the kids and adults in poverty, unloved, and misguided can go for guidance, protection, and peace, that would mean the world to me. I can also see it making the world a better place because when a child is fed, clothed, sheltered, and guided properly, they're able to flourish multiple ways, becoming our next presidents, doctors, and philanthropists. Children are the future.
Mike, I know you wanted to respond to this one.
Yeah, so definitely short, sweet, and to the point. But I think far and away the most important part to understand when listening to Mr. Ferris's response here is the fact that he's been a full-time inmate of the carceral state since age 15. And so when he talks about what's inspired him to create this nonprofit, I think it's important to realize that he's really had next to no exposure to really the professional world in any capacity. And this is a great example of a gentleman who clearly has a ton of drive and passion to make the world better, but who unfortunately just has not been given any of the tools to make that occur. And so I just think it's so important here that that passion isn't allowed to die, and that we provide him with the resources, because really the resources are going to need to start from the bottom up, as he's been unable to ever hold a job in the context that I think a lot of people do, first job at 16, learn the ropes, continue to work like that. And so programs like this are really so important in helping people, because unfortunately Mr. Ferris is not alone in being someone who was locked up before they could even get their driver's license. And helping those people, I think, is really paramount, because otherwise we're just going to send them back out into the world with no life skills and no capacity to help themselves. And at that point, you're just asking for recidivism.
Yeah, I think that was really well said, Michael. I just wanted to add a couple of things or piggyback off of what you had said right there. Yeah, for Hassan, somebody who didn't really have, the full educational experience, for him to be able to recognize and to actively work towards, correcting where he may have gone wrong on his own path and trying to improve that for other people so they don't fall into that same category, in the incarceral state and all that stuff, I think is really important. And I think Hassan also touched on a lot of good stuff there. I think he talked about what happens, when kids are hungry, when there's inconsistency in their housing situations, or, maybe after school programs that can also help kids, keep the youth off the streets, and that type of stuff. And so I just think, having that holistic perspective that Hassan has based on his own experience and wanting to do better and wanting to improve the lives of others so that they don't fall in that same pattern, I think is really useful and effective.
Well said. Thank you, Talis.
Yeah, and you guys as interns have had, first-hand experience, just sort of seeing all these different experiences that we read about. We hear about the school to prison pipeline. These are major issues affecting our youth today. And so this kind of puts a face on some of the things we read about in the news, that kind of thing. So thank you for your thoughts on that. Right. Well, we're going to keep things moving and move on to hear about Willie Clay. Willie Clay. Um, Willie M. Clay II. Willie M. Clay II is an Oakland, California native and current resident excuse me, of the Delaney Street Honors Program. He is currently serving a life without parole sentence and has been incarcerated since 2009. Mr. Clay has been working diligently on improving himself in terms of redemption, remorse, and repentance, especially through his actions and conduct. He has participated in a variety of rehabilitative programs. Those efforts consist of anger management, denial management, victim awareness, conflict recognition and resolution, to name a few. Mr. Clay also assists with tutoring, mentorship, and facilitates the above-mentioned groups as a means to give back to the community in hope of getting other men to a place of healing, thus rehabilitation. Mr. Clay has also been participating in the industry of rehabilitation in terms of a rehabilitative barber vocational training program in which he created a 501c3 and submitted it to the governor's office for implementation, excuse me, into CDCR institutions. He is currently at the end of publishing a book, Creating a Family Foundation Corporation Through Real Estate with Generational Wealth in Mind. So you can see me, we're scrolling through the website for those just joining us. The website is UBFSF.org to find out more information. And the question that Mr. Clay's been asked in review is number 7. In reviewing our conference topics, which two do you believe would best equip you to become a problem solver, particularly as someone who was once considered, quote unquote, the source of the problem? And we'll ask, for this question, we'll be asking Cheyenne to respond.
In reviewing our conference topics, which two do you believe would best equip you to become a problem solver, particularly as someone who was once considered the source of the problems? Well, the two topics that interested me the most was communications and access while incarcerated, and the second topic was transitioning your program from prison to outside communities. And I'm going to try to wrap this up in one example for myself. The communications and access while incarcerated is extremely important because it allows us to confer and socialize with individuals that have resources, either capabilities, and to provide us with different resources to assist us at perpetuating or introducing or nonprofits to society and getting us the assistance that we need. And that can be in reference to financial assistance, recruiting volunteers and developing a board of directors, the leadership development, budgeting and finances, and that's just to name a few that individuals outside, if we was able to communicate with them and was provided access, would be able to assist us in doing. And the second part in terms of transitioning your programs from prison to outside communities, specifically for the program that I just mentioned to you guys, the second part of our program was designed as, you know how they have the adage where they say from school to pipeline to prison. Well, we built on that and we reversed it from prison to employment in terms of having beauty salons and barbershops do a I would say like an honors program where they would be willing to assist and agree to accept former incarcerated individuals' employment opportunities if they was able to leave from the institution with license. In that regards, we have that section in this part of the society pipeline from prison to employment program, whereby barbers and barbershop owners, companies throughout the state of California that believe in social and community equality, that's willing to partner with the R.E.B.U.I.L.D program in providing jobs opportunities for former incarcerated individuals who will be certified and licensed by the NIC, which will in turn reduce crime recidivism, including redirecting taxpayer funding, allocating society's most precious asset, sweat equity, in a more effective and equitable way through a tangible and direct source of employability, hands-on training, establishing occupational skills, thus employment, becoming a contribution to society. Barbers are so much more than their occupation. They are sounding boards, confidants, crazy counselors, friends, institutions of fellowship, and cornerstones of the communities. Barbers and beauty is essential. It's deeply rooted in the fabric of our lives and the staple of America's identity, which is figuratively an evergreen of all society, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, so I really liked how Mr. Clay discussed not only the concept of school to pipeline, but also from prison to employment. So many incarcerated individuals become extremely discouraged when it comes to being released from prison due to not having access to jobs or not even being looked at due to having a record. And the fact that he not only looks to better his life, but to also better others is something that like many don't really seek. And just the overall way that he talks about barbers and the idea that beauty and barbers are essential is something that really struck me. Like when most people go in to get a haircut, to them it's simply a haircut. But to those who are given a second chance in life from prison in lower income communities where many aren't even fortunate enough to experience a haircut, being able to connect with those who have experience from being incarcerated and have knowledge and skills to give back to those, particularly those who are younger, to point them in the right direction is a very prominent component. Some of these kids coming in to connect with these previously incarcerated individuals might not have the proper resources or education, which can then lead them down the wrong path. And allowing those who are incarcerated to shed some light on their experiences and try to lead these individuals in the right direction is just something that like really struck me.
Danielle, I know you had strong feelings about this as well. I meant to mention that, sorry.
Yeah, I believe that to touch on what Cheyenne said, communication and access is like significantly more important for incarcerated or recently incarcerated folks to hone those skills of like negotiation and social selling, storytelling, when seeking to like communicate and gain access to resources and information, and opportunities from those who like have it. And they are already fighting a losing battle when it comes to having a record. So those skills are especially more important in order to persuade and like promote great ideas like Willie's. And to touch on the haircut or the barbershop hair salon aspect of his program, I just think that especially for a lot of people of color, it is in that setting of a barbershop, of a hair salon, that like personal connections are made because it is a very intimate activity and deeply rooted in these communities. I know for like a lot of Black men, this is a space where it's used to create conversation, to express your feelings on topics, and you often sit in a chair from you were a child up until now, and you gain knowledge from those that are cutting your hair, that are older than you. So I just really love how like intimate and personal where like this program would be, and how it's also like tied into like rehabilitative programming that you're able to like gain licensure and certification to then do those things for those sitting in your chair, you know? So it's like these great ideas, like you need those communication and skills because you're already working with something against you. So like it's especially important to build those strong skills to get programs like this, these necessary programs up and running within the prison system and outside of the prison system.
Yeah, it's amazing what people have been able to do. It's almost like I just can't imagine a more powerful way uh, to utilize the one asset, I suppose, which is time. You know, in planning and organizing, actually many assets, in planning and organizing, and using a 501c3, using a nonprofit organization like the ones we're hearing about to bring about some powerful change. Some of the things I've been hearing so far are things that people on the outside, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find that many people doing this kind of work in the so-called free world. So this is very impressive. And if you're just joining in and you're inspired by what you're hearing, and we know you probably, we hope you are, um, you know, we want to remind folks that this conference is continuing on into January, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But this may be for you. This may be a possible way for you to create change where you are and to support some of the change makers that we're hearing about. Before we move on, did anyone else want to chime in or add anything, any of our panelists?
Yeah, Dr. Miletsky, thank you. I just feel as though Mr. Clay's response here is arguably most important because we've already talked about previously folks who have come in with no past knowledge or resources in any capacity through Hassan, or folks who had to learn by doing and now have the resources but were forced to learn by doing and are now at a point where they are more stable. But I think that Mr. Clay's response is especially valuable because it continues to build on the fact that even once you have these resources and you've developed a program and you're in a good position knowledge wise, it's still so incredibly important to have these communication skills because there's, you know, continuing steps that once you've developed your own program, you still need to be able to communicate that program to the authorities in charge in order to further continue that outside of the prison walls in the way that Mr. Clay is attempting to get that licensure done. So it really just shows that you know, the fight for knowledge is never ending and that there's just so much more that can be done at every step of the process.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, we're gonna keep moving, and thank you for joining us. Those of us who may just be coming in, we're gonna move on to our next panelist, Mr. Brian Tem and Thames, excuse me. And so we're gonna hear from him. Um, Brian Thames is the co-creator and producer of the renowned, multiple award-winning podcast Uncuffed. He recently won an award for one of his uncuffed stories. SPJ NorCal, Society of Professional Journalists, Northern California, gave the award for excellence in community journalism of a podcast, radio, or audio. And we've asked Brian to answer question number 3. How do you believe your unique perspective as an incarcerated individual can enhance your contribution to the nonprofit sector and address social issues effectively? Here was his answer.
How do you believe your unique perspective as an incarcerated individual can enhance your contribution to the nonprofit sector and address social issues effectively? Well, I haven't personally or particularly created any nonprofit 501 3C. I haven't created anything, but I have my own thing that I would like to contribute directly related to social issues. In short, I've published five nonfiction books since I've been in prison, but the most important one, I would like to be free in order to make sure that it has the desired impact. And I have written the Black Manual, MAN, M-A-N in caps, and the subtitle is Surviving Encounters with Law Enforcement, Hostile White Folks, and Others with a False Sense of Superiority. Despite what that subtitle might sound like, it's not antagonistic whatsoever. It's just what it sounds like. It's a manual. By me writing this manual, it's dealing directly with the social issue and the phenomenon, people of color, men in particular, being killed and sometimes tortured before death by law enforcement or others with the mentality of law enforcement or a Messiah complex. I think that my contribution is not necessarily helping others get on their feet, but helping others to learn and practice making better decisions to aid in their own survival. That's really the gist of that. So like I said, I have not created a nonprofit, but I do firmly believe that there is a lane for me to support others in that regard. And, you know, regarding my perspective as an incarcerated individual in relation to what I just said, I mean, I'm in a fishbowl now, but I wasn't always inside the fishbowl. I was outside of the fishbowl, you know, for a portion of my life. So some of the things that I see on TV now, I've experienced first and second hand as far as the brutality in relation to the demographic that I described.
Danielle, I think you were going to respond to this one.
Yes, Brian said that he thinks that there's a lane, but there definitely is a lane for him. And experience is often the best teacher, and relatability helps with like opening up, empathizing with others, and thus creating solutions. And I believe that that's what Brian is doing with his manual, using like creativity and art to assist others, to contribute to like social issues, and specifically for him reducing those deathly interactions with those who hold this sort of superiority. There just needs to be a significant importance placed on personal experience because it is personal and you've lived it, and it's something that other people have not. So when it comes to starting a nonprofit in whatever sector, that personal experience is what differentiates you from the person who's just trying to help and do what they think is right, other than like actually living through it and knowing like what needs to be done, or due to that lived experience. So also, it's very important to note, like when it comes to this manual, that not people aren't susceptible. Like everyone is often able to interact with these like deathly interactions. So, and some groups are often more targeted than others. So I believe that there's definitely a lane for him, and that these skills are very necessary that he will learn through this program, to streamline and create like an effective program that could really help a lot of people, because people are experiencing these interactions every day. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I also appreciated, you know, his point about being in the fishbowl and outside the fishbowl. And when you think about media, you know, there's been how many successful television shows, movies. Hollywood has certainly done a lot in terms of depicting, you know, prison life, street life, and some of the things that he was talking about. I like that he's using the podcast, the tool of the podcast, an award-winning one, um, in order to sort of talk back from a very authentic place. That's critically important. And we got a lot of time. What do others think about that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak on this. This is one where I feel my experience as an intern has been especially, let's say, enlightening because you come in and you think that you really understand quite a bit about the prison system, especially if you've done research and it's interested you, but it's an inherently closed off system. And so there are just so many little facts of life that, as much as we would like to help and as much as we try to learn and try to understand, we really just can't without the perspective of someone who is incarcerated. So that's somewhere where Ivan has really helped me learn and develop. There so many of these systems are just as Mr. Thames said, are impossible to see from outside the fishbowl. And I think that's really why their perspective is so invaluable because without them, it would almost be impossible to see past the opacity of the carceral system and to see what's really going on and to see what processes are really necessary for making actual change to the system.
Interesting. Yeah. 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 I couldn't agree more, especially, being a professor and stuff, you can read about it, you can write about it, you can talk about it, but uh, it's that's something that I think that Ivan's helped all of us with is to hear these authentic voices a little bit more clearly. It's very important. Um, Taos, you look like you want to say something.
I think Michael and Danielle did a fantastic job covering that for us.
I agree. Very diplomatic. Okay. All right. Well, let's keep it moving then. We'll move on to our next speaker, um, Fabian Kensrant, and I hope I'm pronouncing people's names right. If I don't, uh, credit to the head and not to the heart. Um, Fabian Kensrant is a 49-year-old and received life without parole at the age of 18. He is an entrepreneur, husband, and social advocate. And the question that he's going to be answering, considering the time that you've spent incarcerated, how has your age and the duration of your imprisonment shaped your outlook on the nonprofit sector? Furthermore, how has your involvement with nonprofits influenced your perspective, maturity, growth, and facilitated your rehabilitation or transition to becoming a more productive citizen? And here is his response.
Considering the time I've spent incarcerated, how has my age and the duration of my imprisonment shaped my outlook on the nonprofit sector? Furthermore, how has my involvement with nonprofits influenced my perspective, maturity, growth, and facilitated my rehabilitation and transition to becoming a more productive citizen? I was given life without the possibility of parole at age 18. I am now 49 years old as of this recording. I will be 50 in 2 months. My entire adult life has been spent in prison. So for the past 31 years, I have reflected deeply on my aging in prison under the state of my incarceration. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that the age at which an individual is incarcerated and the duration of incarceration does have an impact on one's outlook. Younger individuals have different perspectives and needs compared to older individuals. Longer periods of incarceration can lead to a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by individuals within the criminal justice system and the need for support and rehabilitation. My involvement with nonprofits has had a transformative effect upon me. The support services, the educational programs, job training, counseling, and other resources that have aided me in my rehabilitative efforts have been just phenomenal. These nonprofit heroes helped me gain new skills, develop a sense of purpose, and access opportunities that have contributed to my personal growth and a more positive outlook on life. And by working with these type of organizations, I have gained a deeper understanding of the challenges faced by marginalized communities and the importance of social justice. That exposure has led me to an increased level of empathy, a broader worldview, and a desire to contribute to positive change. I can never regress back to being a non-productive, non-contributing member of society. My new pro-social perspective won't allow for that, nor will I as a human being. Thank you.
Cheyenne, just your response.
Yes. I really liked how he discussed that working with these groups has allowed him to gain a sense of purpose, even though he's been incarcerated for such a long period of time. I can only imagine at the young age of 18 years old, that age when many of us would be graduating high school and creating a new life for us for the future. Many of us would just be getting our licenses and just being able to vote. And many individuals' brains aren't even fully developed yet. So then being locked in a cell and having very limited resources, not seeing the outside world for around like 30 years, creates a constant cycle that 100% changes the outlook of many. I feel like many individuals lose their sense of purpose when they're in a constant cycle living in the situation where it seems there can be no change. And because of the minimal resources they're provided with, many give up and don't want to seek change or betterment of their lives. But for those who don't, such as Fabian, being able to connect with these programs, like support services and educational programs that allow him to gain a sense of purpose and to have a more positive outlook on life, can then be brought and reflected into underprivileged communities and then can create change, which is what nonprofits are all about and are many of their main missions. It's like, to me, it's just like a crazy idea that nonprofits aren't just around to help those on the outside, but the contribution and work that is put in from these incarcerated individuals can create such amazing product. And it's really amazing to see all the work and effort put in by these individuals.
Yeah, I think it's striking his age, that really stops you in your tracks. You got to think about, how many of us, how we would, and it's hard not to think about that, how we would handle that, being in that situation. And I just, if I may, I just can't help remark on how positive this is. People are using their time. I mean, talk about giving back and making amends, using those time blocks to build and to create something like this it's pretty remarkable. It's I think for me, it forces me to think about how I use my time. I'll put it that way, you know. Yeah, yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, we're gonna move on to our next panelist, Tamara Hatch. And just gonna scroll back on up. And for anyone watching on Facebook or Zoom or YouTube, all of this information is available on the website. And that's where what you're looking at right now, our screen is shared to this website. It's filled with information, resources, and other information, not only about this conference, but about the organization, the United Black Family Scholarship Foundation. And so we just welcome everybody who may be just coming on. Damar Hatch is a 41-year-old San Francisco, California native. As a child, he lived in Texas, Boston, Chicago, and several others before his family resettled in the Bay Area. Of his many talents and interests, he is an accomplished author, poet, and entrepreneur. He is a passionate community organizer, investor, and life coach. And he's going to be answering question number 9. And I'll just read that. Regarding the acquisition of skills within our program, how do you perceive these skills aiding in your reentry and success back into society? And this was his response.
How do I perceive the skills within United Black Family Scholarship in aiding reentry for me back into society? Well, first of all, the information that I'm receiving is very vital and key for me to reenter society, because not only am I getting trained in the field that I wish to partake in, it also is giving me more insight and development into actually being prepared for society. The more that I increase my own skills, I'm able to help others increase their skills. I'm able to take what I learned and apply the concept of each one teach one. And each one teach one would mean me spending the necessary time and effort in learning the whole nonprofit and public service sector. In doing that, it allows me to expand not only the knowledge that I already possess and the experience, but it will allow me to be trained under those who have been doing it for years before me. And I believe that this organization, it creates a platform. It creates the necessary tools that I need in order for me to actually fulfill my goals. And in fulfilling my goals are to go back to my community and educate based on everything that I've been through in my incarceration, everything that I've learned, and to take this platform and to use it wise and just to, so to speak, broaden my voice. And my voice is simply saying, and reentry is so important for those that were formerly incarcerated, because going back into society, you need the necessary skills, you need the necessary mental health development, cognitively training, you need resources, you're going to need employment. So I believe that this program is allowing me to understand that I have to surround myself with qualified people, a team that believes in sharing the same mission and vision that I see as far as helping others. So as I consider my time in prison, my age, the time that I've been in prison, I see that the nonprofit sector is geared for individuals just like me. I'm 44 years old. I've been incarcerated for 9 years, 4 months, and I'm soon to be released. As I look back in hindsight, I see what it took, the effort, the time, and the understanding of what it means to prepare myself upon release. What does that look like? That's the question I asked myself when I first was incarcerated. What does change look like? What does reentering society look like? And for me, it was simple. I'm going to need to go deep within myself, learn more about myself. I'm going to have to increase my education, increase my vocational skills. I'm going to have to deal with any mental health issues that I had, any substance abuse. I'm going to have a network upon release, a support system. So many people don't have a support system that's incarcerated. So I see that nonprofits can be that extended family that one may need, that can give a person direction, guidance, and help facilitate that transition back into society. So for me, the growth and the maturity came in with understanding that I've been suffering in silence and that it's okay to not be okay, and it's also okay to ask for help. And so once I began to ask for help, once I began to take self-help groups, substance abuse, mental health, being in Shakespeare plays, continuously advancing from earning my GED to earning my Associate of Art degree in political science. I know that it took maximum effort for me. It took every single day of not only doing it for myself, but doing it for those that I care about, to also look around and see that there are other men that were on the same journey. And sometimes it's us that needs to help us. And so as I began to help myself and others were able to see my change and my growth, there became this attraction to change. And so many people ask me, well, how did you do it throughout your whole incarceration? Not one single disciplinary infraction. How did you advance in your education? And I always tell them, it was a decision to change, a commitment to stay committed to that change. Because I couldn't remain in the contemplation stage of change for too many years. I had to take action. And so in there, I came across a lot of incarcerated gentlemen, such as Ivan Kilgore, who are already in the nonprofit sector margin as far as helping others. And so that inspiration allowed me to go even deeper within myself. And me and my mother started God All Over Ministries out in Oakland, California, 2015. And so we're geared on about rebuilding families. We're about successful reentry through employment, through counseling, and through many other services such as housing, referrals, and many other referrals. And to see what that has already done while I'm still incarcerated for other men that have gone on and paroled before me, it not only motivates me to get more training, it not only motivates me more to network with others, it allows me to fulfill my passion, which is to see others grow just as much as I've grown through these years. With age comes maturity if you do the work.
House.
Yeah, so Damara talked about a lot of different skills, but I think the most important one that I heard him say was actually a resource. And I think that resource is support. And he kind of mentioned the support that he was able to derive from the organization, the United Black Family Scholarship Foundation, and as well as people who are like-minded, who support the organization and who want to make a change in their community. So he mentioned talking to Ivan Kilgore, our founder, as well as other individuals while he was incarcerated. And it seems to be that level of support and just being able to learn from them as well as learn with these individuals was also able to provide him the necessary skill set that he feels like he can utilize when he re-enters and goes back into society with more successful tools than he had when he was there last time. And so I think that's really great that he found that support system in a place where it's very hard to find a support system, as well as find like-minded people who want to make a social impact. And I also really liked the fact that he mentioned the marginal social benefit of just being able to learn skills and also being able to share those skills with others, just because that's what, it's part of being a human. It's part of, learning. It's a part of expanding cultures and horizons. And so I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Mike.
Yeah, just to build off of, I think, a little bit of what Taos touched on, I really appreciate Damara's focus on family, and specifically how he views nonprofits as a system where you can find family, especially for those folks who maybe don't have the systems outside of prison anymore. Because ultimately, I think most of us are not involved in the nonprofit system because of a love of money, but because it's something that we really are able to find a community within. And I think that really shows a big part of the reason why programs like this that are providing knowledge on how to start nonprofits are so essential versus just regular job experience programs that exist within prisons, because those programs may give you the skills that you need outside of prison, but they don't necessarily promote the community that I think developing nonprofits can. And that's really just such a great thing, and such a great thing to hear him speak on.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's someone who is about to re-enter he said he was getting out soon. And bring, so the question's completely relevant, and bringing, a lot of skills to bear. Um, I think I can't help but think this just flies in the face of what so many, people's mentality is about what happens in prisons. Um, here's a bunch of folks who are building up skills, using their time to improve themselves, improve and give back to society. Um, this is such an important message for people to hear about, because um, I can't speak for anyone else, but in my, discussions with people, you hear all wide range of expectations or assumptions, I'll call them, about incarcerated people and what happens behind prison walls, and mostly I would call it judgment, about, well, there must, there's people make a lot of assumptions. I'll just put it that way. And so here are people who are, you know, realizing their own flaws or their own experiences and doing something about it, using the time to build themselves up. What an amazing contribution someone like Tamara and or others will make when they come back out. Um, that's, you know, if there's any foundations or anyone watching this program, or anyone who has a friend or knows someone, you know, contact us. Let us or let them know. Let them know about some of the amazing work that's being done here humbly, with a lot of respect, and just creating opportunity. How many jobs will be created from the work that Damara and some of these other folks are doing, whether inside or outside? That's the kind of thing that could help fuel this American economy right now. So it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. Um, I'll just throw it back out if anyone else wants to comment or add anything. Danielle, you've been quiet. You talked about the barber shops, you talked about the beauty shops, you talked about some, that has been a driver, entrepreneurship, the community. Um, is there anything you might want to add?
No, other than that, like community building is essential. Community building fills in those gaps. So, yeah, yeah, that's really what I have to say.
Yeah. There's one word here I'll take is skills. You know, this, you can hear it in his voice, you hear it in commentary. He's been sharpening those skills, and um, hey, that's what the American economy is all about. All right. Well, we're coming to our last speaker, which is Mr. Barry Monroe. And also just want to remind, folks, if you have any questions, start getting them ready as we move, almost to the point of for discussion. I saw at least two of my own students who came on. Thank you. Shout out to AFS 101. Thank you for joining us. And, you know, uh, be nice. Would love to have some questions from anyone who's on. We want to try to make this interactive as possible. So our last speaker is Barry Monroe. Barry Monroe is currently serving a 40 years to life sentence for his crimes. He is in building self-help institutional coordinator. So, excuse me, he is the in building self-help institutional coordinator at CSP Solano Prison, California. Mr. Monroe spends his time making amends for the crime he regrets committing. He helps other incarcerated inmates to see the impact of what they have done to their victims, communities, and their families. He also promotes positive pro-social citizenship, challenges belief systems, and promotes man up, making rational decisions, acting with precision on rationality, never giving up on rational decisions, uplifting myself, family, and community by positive living, or man up. Mr. Monroe is also a practitioner of when you know better, you do better. This is needed to be modeled in order to better our communities. And he has answered for us question number 5. And I'll read it. In your opinion, how can nonprofit work collaborate with abolitionists to mitigate the damaging effects of the prison industrial complex? And we'll be hearing from Danielle on this question.
Your opinion, how can nonprofit work collaborate with abolitionists, to migrate the damaging effect of prison industrial complex? On that question, and I had to think about this for a while, a nonprofit that established concrete tools for an incarcerated person to use once reentering back into society will achieve all of this. If I'm a nonprofit and I'm listening to what the inmate wants versus what the inmate is asking for, or what the inmate needs, versus what he's asking for or she's asking for, I think that is essential. Most inmates think or say they need financial support once they get out there. In all actuality, if there's transitional housing or subsidized housing that a person can go to, now they need to be able to be financially secure. Most crimes are committed due to financial burden. And I think financial education is key. I think that if a nonprofit can establish that and use that as a stepping stone to help people, also how to communicate their emotions. As men, we don't communicate our emotions in a healthy way. And that creates to a lot of violent behavior. We become passive aggressive, or we repress a lot of the emotions, and therefore it comes out passively aggressive. Also, you have a lot of people in here who's fed up with being a gang member, but they can't say it. So if they can't say it, they have no outlet. But I think once a nonprofit comes in and helps them and assuring them that it's okay to say, hey, I'm fed up with this, and now what type of life do you want to live? And helping that individual in that aspect.
Yeah, it's important to note that prison has never been the answer, in my opinion. You remove men and women from society and rarely give them the knowledge or the tools to re-enter effectively, and you're upset when they end up committing another crime and going back in. So obviously, prison has never been the answer or the final answer. But I love that Barry is saying that giving skills and resources through nonprofit work can reduce this recidivism rate. He points out that most crimes are committed for financial reasons or for lack of resources, and how there's also a need to create a space for men to communicate their emotions, and the need for an outlet like that. Another important note is that a lot of men, even outside of prison, struggle with communication and expressing emotions, or gaining the feeling that it's safe enough to do so. And I feel like it's especially integral to create this space for men who have been a victim to the prison system and have probably been through traumatic things prior to incarceration and throughout their duration, throughout their incarceration. So it's important for these nonprofits to fill in these gaps to help recenter and redirect men and women. And there's a need for the nonprofit center to also intervene at these like critical moments with resources to reduce the need for prison, because men and women are being given tools that they need to like prosper and succeed, thus like decreasing the need to commit crime. So yeah, and that's also why I believe personal experience is so important when you are starting these nonprofits, especially directed towards those who have been incarcerated, because you know what you needed, and thus you know what to provide, or you're surrounded by people who are expressing their needs to you, and thus you know what they want and what they need. And that makes it even more effective and more personal, and thus like almost the foundation of a successful nonprofit, because you do have that experience. Yeah.
Good, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Some I saw some of the men as you were talking were some twitching here and there going on, some about not having you know, being good at communicating our feelings. Brothers, talk to me. What's going on out there? But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's absolutely true. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Um, but um, but here's a man who's getting in touch a little bit, and could almost say that about all of the panelists that we heard from. I hear introspection. I hear long periods of meditation and thinking, about various things. And that's such a powerful resource, when everything has been taken away from you. Um, from what I understand in my own limited knowledge of this, time is that greatest of resources, that one can use. And it's one thing I'll say about just doing some of this work, and this has only been through the work with UBFSF for me, and previous work um, as well, but is understanding that that resource of time, and it's something we all something I have to work on as myself. And so I love the vulnerability, the openness, and that's an inspiring, uplifting message for all of us. You know, there's always a chance to change. There's always a chance to transform. Um, Years ago, when I was my first job out of graduate school was at University of Nebraska, Omaha. And Omaha, as probably many people know, is the birthplace of Malcolm X. And so the city wanted to do a program for the prison systems there, medium security prison, on the life of Malcolm X, make a curriculum based off the life of Malcolm X. And those of us who worked on it, that question of transformation was palpable, it's powerful. Malcolm talked about the library, using the prison library became his master's degree, and boy, it just makes me think about, well, if I'm being truthful, it makes me think about Ivan, because you know, powerful minds, can go anywhere through learning, reading, um, and transformation, basically. And so I think all the panelists have made us think and consider this a little bit more. Before we move on to the Q&A portion, does anyone else, maybe in want to make any other remarks or in the way of kind of closing or anything that just might be on your heart at this time? Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Well, want to thank all of you for your patience and just for your your comments. We are going to move to the Q&A period. I want to open the floor for any questions that either anyone on the Zoom with us may have, or elsewhere. Feel free to type them in the chat. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for now. And while we're waiting, or if there aren't any questions, one thing I think some of us have been wondering is why is the team called R.E.B.U.I.L.D? What's that all about, interns?
So R.E.B.U.I.L.D stands for Rebuilding Every Black and Underserved Institution to Liberate and Diversify. So this kind of refers to rebuilding the communities again after they've been damaged. So R.E.B.U.I.L.D looks to interact with like low income communities with high incarceration rates, poverty, homelessness, and crime. Basically by connecting between like civic organizations, existing community groups or institutions, and members within communities, all while strengthening ideas such as social and economic opportunities through guidance, leadership, educational opportunities, and even ideas such as policy changes. So within this team, myself and each of the other panelists all pose a position that we work together to create this team. So like, for example, I'm the volunteer and services coordinator. So within my position, I work closely with Ivan, who's our founder, when it comes to like recruiting new volunteers or working on fundraising and working with other local organizations, such as like low-income schools to create like toy drives, clothing drives, and other ways to give back to local communities. So each one of us all hold a position within this R.E.B.U.I.L.D project to help give back and provide to marginalized and like low-income communities.
That's great. And does everyone does the same things, or do some of you work on other issues, and if so, what are they?
Sure. I'm the survey research coordinator for the organization. So I'm kind of in charge of laying out the research and kind of, working hand in hand with, the rest of the team members to kind of decide an agenda based on like our research and our survey responses, and try to find the correlation between housing rates and incarceration rates and whatever else we might stumble upon in that research. So.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
As the policy intern, my job is basically to look at the policies that are in place that kind of perpetuate the circumstances like housing crisis, different things, and try to, I guess, propose different solutions to the problems that often lead to incarceration or to basically an unstable living environment that would cause someone to maybe commit a crime, and trying to find those solutions or those policies, or to I guess reimagine those policies.
Thank you. Well, I mean, most people your age are out, partying, hanging out, you're giving of your time on a Saturday right before the holiday, and leading up to this. It's pretty inspiring, to some of us older people. But so speaking of which, what is the organization currently doing to help incarcerated individuals, maybe on a more one-to-one basis? And anyone could take that.
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak on that. So this panel, and more specifically program that's led up to it, has been one of the biggest works that's been done recently. Ivan, our founder, organized and led a whole educational program within Solano in order to help teach these guys the resources that they would need in order to operate their own nonprofits, because these responses didn't come out of a void. They're all responses to the end of a multi-week program designed to help give them the tools that they might need to develop into nonprofit leaders of the future. So that, and this is kind of the culminating step of that, really, and getting their voices heard out of that. And then also the rebuild team right now is largely focusing on policy changes that might be made to help affect housing for both incarcerated and non-incarcerated people. I think it was Barry who spoke on the importance of housing and subsidized housing for people leaving the carceral system in order to avoid recidivism. And that's really been one of the main focuses of the program. And then we still maintain and continue to operate a living archive of incarcerated authors, where we've helped them get their works published and put them all in one place where they can all be remembered for the ages and seen by as many people as possible. And so those have kind of been the main steps. And of course, we've got some things that aren't quite ready for the public to hear yet, but that are cooking up and that we're really excited to go ahead and try to help people with. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely does. That's incredible. Incredible. It's important that more people know about this kind of work that's being done. You know, it's for those of like myself, teach African American history. Um, you know, there's a lot of parallels, to things in the past that are still with us, obviously today. Um, it's just hard not to see, in my mind, some of those things, and yet day to day, a lot of people don't acknowledge, don't realize, that a lot of the things from the past are still with us now. You know, um, just like even hearing about, some of the entrepreneurial efforts, uh, when knowing that so much of the labor that's done in many prisons is, you know, it's very affordable, let's say, um, as in exploitative and uncompensated, and different states benefit off of that, and so you got people here turning that situation around, creating jobs, contributing to the economy, maybe utilizing that that exploitative experience and turning it around into a positive. Um, so I just, send a lot of respect to you guys, um, and much respect, to those who are listening who may also find themselves behind bars. Um, this is definitely a labor of love, and people who do this work, they care deeply, and take it very seriously, as you can hear. Did anyone else want to add anything else, your thoughts or experiences that people may out there may need to know about?
I guess just the one thing is if you ever want to get involved, it's a lot easier than you would think. People are always looking for people to help. I think we're looking for people to help. And it's absolutely something that I think you get back tenfold to what you put in. I mean, it's just so great getting to hear these responses and getting to listen to everything that these guys have said and done. And even just being able to help in a small part of that organizationally has been really great. So anybody who, in any capacity, might consider joining, I say just do it. And the worst thing that happens is you don't enjoy it and you stop doing it. But best case scenario, you find yourself really engrossed in the work, and I think that's all you can really ever hope for, huh?
That's right. That's right. It inspired us at Stony Brook, where I teach, to start, working, finding some interns to support the work. We've had two so far. I want to also give a shout out to Isabella Kane, who's behind the scenes, been doing a lot of work, a lot of great work. I could go on, but this person is amazing and has done a lot. And it's a high bar. All of the interns in this program, and there are interns coast to coast, by the way, all over the country, different places, who have found it, not robbery to come and, help do work as volunteers. I do receive credit, I believe, which is great. And that's just a small token, of the work that's being done. This is really amazing. So all of you are, to be commended. Um, I know that the respect is definitely out there. All right. Well, I don't see any questions in the chat at this time, and I guess that means you all must have just answered everything in your comments already. We don't, of course, wouldn't even dare think of leaving without talking about a couple more things, which is first of all, well, to hear from uh, our founder, Ivan Kilgore, and also I just wanted to. Uh, Well, I'll wait till he makes his remarks, but we just don't want to forget to remind people about panel number 2, which is also going to be happening in January, and that is going to also be that's going to be a panel on which I myself am on the panel and some other folks. So we'll be sure to share that before we go. Is Michael, is Ivan available?
Someone has a question.
Oh, great. Okay, question from Roderick Key, my own student, Roderick. There's a documentary called Push Out that details about stopping a person from spiraling before they end up in the criminal justice system. Um, has anyone seen this documentary, or are there any programs that you guys know about that are similar?
I don't know about any of you guys, but I personally have not seen the program. I mean, it's definitely something that I might look into in the future. Um, but if there's any programs that are similar about looking for it, um, yeah, I would definitely. I mean, I absolutely imagine that. There are a lot of programs like ours built specifically around preventing people from ending up in prison before they do. I imagine Dr. Miletsky or Dr. Chase probably could put you in connection with those people if that's something that you'd like to help with. It'd be a great use of your time. But I personally, and I don't think any of the other interns have ever seen the documentary, so it's a little difficult for us to give you an example.
All right, yeah, fair enough. This I just like did a Google search. It looks like push out the criminalization of Black girls in schools, I believe is what it's called. So we'll check that out. Definitely, I will. I'm sure our panelists will also check it out too. Um, thank you for your question. Well, I don't see any other questions now, and I know we're coming towards the end. But I don't want us to leave without hearing from from Ivan, um, and to give us some closing comments, and from that might inspire some questions in the chat as well.
Sorry, 1 second. He's actually just right in the process of calling back. So give me about 20 seconds and we'll be able to hear from him. You might just need to re-let him know. Oh, he hung up. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that. He should call back any second now.
No worries, no worries. Let me just, while we're waiting, see if I can bring this up. The flyer for, I don't know if everybody's able to see this. This is the flyer for the conference as a whole, nonprofit coaching and leadership training. And again, the next panel is going to take place Saturday, January 20th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also find out more at the website, as we mentioned, and you can also donate, by the way, if you like what you're hearing, if you feel strongly about it, and you want to help and say, hey, maybe I don't have the time to be an intern or a volunteer, but I'd like to donate, you can text UBFSF to 44321 or 44-321, and you'll receive a text back with instructions on how to support. You can also support by going to the website itself. And we really do, of course, appreciate that. And as we learned today, as a 501c3, your donations are tax deductible. So that's good since we're coming to the end of the year. Not too late to make that donation for 2023.